We are going to now get from Dawn Eskew another presentation on the topic from a different angle and perhaps with more specific information about what's going on in the coming days. We are going to have to, for the sake of getting dinner on time, we're going to aim for finishing up by 5 minutes after 5. Okay? That's your timeline?
5 minutes, okay.
All right, go for it. Dawn Eskew.
Okay, so I'm going to have to probably cut some things out of my talk, and I want to mention right now, because as I get going, I'm going to forget later on, but March 25th, my organization, Personhood Education New York, does a walk in New York City. It's called the International Gift of Life Walk, New York City. It's always on March 25th. No matter what day of the week it ends up, it's going to be March 25th, so it's easy for you to remember. And we also already have our grand pro-life marshal for next year, and that will be, oh my goodness, it's a big name. Sean Carney, the co-founder of 40 Days for Life, and also the honorable hero will be Dr. Haywood Robinson, and he was a former abortion doctor who is now on the board of 40 Days for Life, so he will also be there. So I hope to see you. If you go to my website, which is Personhood Education New York, we're doing an overhaul this summer, so it will be down for a month or two, but check again back in August or September and you'll get all the information. Okay, so thank you. All right, so my name is Dawn Eskew, and I'm here to tell you about assisted suicide euthanasia agenda in New York State. I'm not an attorney. I feel that for today to talk about this issue, I am a messenger. I do have 3 attorneys that I work with, 2 of which are family law attorneys. One who's from Seattle, Washington, Margaret Dorr. She's been working on this agenda, fighting it for the past 10 years. And also, Personhood is an affiliate of a national organization called Personhood Alliance. So we have the president of Personhood Alliance is also an attorney, and he also helps us to analyze the bills. And then the 3rd attorney that I work with, and I have 3 just to make sure the bills say what they say, is our board advisor, John Verdone, and he's the family law attorney. So, okay, so. So I'm going to present the topic divided into 3 areas to help you understand the dynamics of the agenda in New York State, and also to help you understand what the agenda is of assisted suicide euthanasia. I started working in this area in 2015. So I've seen some things happen. I'm beginning to connect the dots. So the 3 areas that I'll talk about is, first, an event that took place on October 3rd, 2017 at Hofstra University. How many of you have heard of Hofstra University? Okay, most of you. So we'll circle around back to that. 2, the second area is what's in the bill. And the final and the last is a message that I have for all of you. So the event on October 3rd, 2017. I live on Long Island. I happen to, and I'm of course watching what's going on with assisted, what agendas, what events are going on. And I discovered that Dr. Timothy Quill was going to speak at Hofstra about what they call medical aid in dying. That's a euphemism for euthanasia. Historically, it has been. So he's not just speaking at the Hofstra University. He's speaking to the new medical students at the new medical school within Hofstra University. And the name of that medical school is Northwell Medical School. Wow. How many of you have heard of Northwell? Healthcare system. Okay, so this is where it becomes chilling, when I started discovering what's going on. So I contacted the dean of the medical school to say, I think you need to have an opposing voice to maintain the academic excellence of Hofstra University on Long Island, in my community. And the dean, his name is Dr. Lawrence Smith. I had communication with him via email, and an alumna of Hofstra University, I got her to start the conversation. And then she handed it over to me. As soon as I got involved, he wanted nothing more, everything was shut down. But we did get to the point where, at first he said, okay, they would have a speaker, an opposing voice. And then when I was mentioning names, they wanted nothing to do with it. And they said, no, sorry, we don't have any time. Then it ended up with them saying, okay, I say them because there were multiple people on this email. Anyway, they did say they would have an opposing voice present. When the day came, the opposing voice, I couldn't figure out who the opposing voice was. I'm trying to figure out, okay, was that person, that person. And at the end, I discovered that it was one of the young medical students who held the opposing position. He did not say much, and he wasn't an expert that had been involved for a while. I give him credit for taking that position, but he did not present an opposing voice to keep academic excellence in the university. So, okay, so in the course of me finding out about this event, I started digging in and saying, okay, who's this dean? Lawrence Smith, and I found out, oh, he's on the board of the Northwell healthcare system. And he calls in Dr. Quill. Now, who is Dr. Quill? Dr. Quill has a long history of fighting to legalize aid in dying. He first started in New York State, and at the time, there was the New York State Attorney General was Dennis Bacco, and Dennis Bacco fought him all the way up to through the New York State courts, and then through the federal to the Supreme Court. And this is a big case called Bacco versus Quill. Law students learn about this case when they're in school. And so when it went up to the Supreme Court, federal Supreme Court, it was a unanimous decision, 9-0. There is no constitutional right to die. So that's Timothy Quill, Dr. Timothy Quill. Today, he's still in New York. He's in Rochester, New York, and he opened up a palliative care department at the hospital in Rochester. So they are tagging the assisted suicide euthanasia onto palliative care, okay? Dr. Quill is also on the board of a national organization called Death with Dignity, and that's to push assisted suicide across the United States. So he comes to Hofstra, he proudly announces that because of his work, he has received $500,000 from George Soros just for the agenda in New York State, not nationally, just New York State. So they have a lot of strength, okay? But, as we heard from some of the other speakers, we may be small, but if we're with God, we know who's going to win. But we need to be active. You need to get involved. Okay, so how did Dr. Timothy Quill sell his product? So I have heard that when you want to sell a product, you have to present the need. So what he did was he showed old black and white photos, looked like from the 50s, or it looked like from a third world country, we were there, of poor conditions for patients. I mean, they were pictures from here, but from years ago. Old equipment, not the newest technology that you would think you would find. So he tried to present how conditions are horrible and therefore we need to have this he calls it medical aid diet. So he created the idea for the need. And I'm here to say, we don't need it. I'm a chemist. I worked as a chemist. I'm not working as a chemist anymore. I did research at Cornell Medical University. I worked on the cutting edge of science. All those who do research and work on the cutting edge of science are so excited to be helping our society, to help people. And we have NIH for grants. And basically what I'm trying to say, our country has the wealth and the resources and the technology to advance. And we have the medicine for every stage of human development in this country. We don't need assisted suicide or euthanasia. In fact, there are students from other countries who come to this country for their master's and PhD and MD because we are on the cutting edge. Bottom line, Dr. Quill wants to present the idea that we don't have the medicine. And I'm here to tell you we do. In any other place, we do in New York. So, sorry, I gotta move fast.
You're doing beautiful.
Okay, thank you.
Take a breath.
All right. So, what I need to explain a little bit is the principle of double effect with medications like morphine for patients who may be in pain. And it's not only for pain, even though it's considered a pain medication. There's morphine, and there's also another drug which is 10 times stronger than morphine called Dilaudid. And so they do give it to patients who may be in pain. And I'm going to give you an example of what happened with my mother. My mother passed away last month, April 5th. She was 100 years old.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Okay. We thought she was going to die of congestive heart failure. She got a blockage in her small intestine, and she did have pain. And then they gave her what they call a G-tube to remove fluid from the stomach so that there would be reduce the swelling in the intestine. So, but she also started to develop a little pneumonia. Okay, so she needed a BiPAP. And so she needed surgery. She said no surgery, and that's fine, because that would be a burden that would be too great for her. It would have killed her anyway. But she still had the wherewithal to make her own decisions. She chose not to have surgery. So the alternate was palliative care. So what did they do? The pain had subsided, but they still started to administer morphine because she was uncomfortable. And not morphine, Dilaudid. And what the doctor told me is that what these two drugs do, yes, it's to relieve the pain, but it also changes the chemistry in the brain. So your perspective of your discomfort is changed. You don't feel it as much, or if at all. So the principle of double effect is that the doctor, someone who, I can't say just cancer, but anyone, like the example of my mother with the breathing discomfort of not getting enough oxygen. So the principle of double effect is that the doctor will administer enough of the pain-killing drug, just enough to make the patient comfortable. The doctor knows that it can or will hasten death, but they don't give so much to kill the patient. They don't do that. They know just how much to give. So that's the principle of double effect. The other thing I need to mention is fluid and nutrition. So when I've spoken to different groups, or to just people, they would say, oh yeah, I'm for the concept. I'm for the concept because I saw my uncle or whoever, they had the fluid and nutrition removed, and I saw them for 3 weeks it was terrible to see them go like that. Well, again, I'm here to say you have a right to fluid and nutrition. There is no law in New York State that it has to be removed. And actually, the mentality is that I've heard a couple of times from doctors, and I even heard of one doctor who was involved with my mother, and I corrected him quickly. But he said, oh, well, the first thing we'll do is remove fluid and nutrition so they don't suffer longer. That's not the reason for removing fluid and nutrition. You remove it if the fluid and nutrition is a burden greater than the benefit. Okay, so sometimes a patient may be vomiting because it's just the body can't handle it anymore. That's when it's removed. And by the way, I should say that I'm certified in bioethicist, so I did learn this. Just talking off the top of my head. Okay, so there may be people who say, I'm for the concept. There may be people you know that say they're for this, and nobody should tell them what to do with their body. And we've heard that before, right, with the abortion agenda. So the thing that we say is, okay, you can be for the concept, but you don't know what's in the bill. You don't know what the bill is going to do. So now this is where I'm going to tell you about what's in the bill. Okay. First, I have to say that we are all from New York, and we know that there is a lot of corruption in New York, right?
Really?
So, with fraud and abuse.
Tell us it's not
And so that is one big reason why this bill, no matter how much the other side will say there are safeguards, it doesn't matter because people don't follow the law anyway. And no matter what kind of safeguards you put in, it's not going to matter. So, I'm going to do this. Anyway, there was a very interesting article that I found through the National Institute of Health. And the article was in Current Oncology. The article was published in 2011. And it said that legalizing euthanasia, the study they did, this is the results of their study, that legalizing euthanasia or assisted suicide, this is the title, legalizing euthanasia or assisted suicide, the illusion of safeguards and control. The present paper provides evidence that these laws and safeguards are regularly ignored and transgressed in all jurisdictions, and that transgressions are not prosecuted. They discovered that about 900 people annually are administered lethal substances without having given explicit consent. And in one jurisdiction, almost 50% of cases of euthanasia are not reported. Now, these studies were done in Belgium, the Netherlands, and probably Switzerland. And almost 50% of the cases of euthanasia are not even reported. And so that creates a social slippery slope, as do changes to laws and criteria that followed legislation. Okay. So although the law was set up with the initial intent to limit euthanasia and assisted suicide as a last resort option for a very small number of terminally ill people. Some jurisdictions now extend the practice to newborns, children in Belgium, and people with dementia. A terminal illness is no longer a prerequisite in those countries. Okay. So, now I will tell you what's in the bill. There are 5 points. They're very simple points. And the points are: 1, you've heard me talk about terminally ill, okay? But these bills are not necessarily for those who are dying. The other side's not going to tell you. You're not going to find that in the bill when you read it. But it is not, the way it works is that it is not necessarily for those who are dying. Jeanette Hall, she voted for assisted suicide in Oregon. The following year, she found out she had cancer. She wanted to apply for the assisted suicide. Her mother had died, her brother had committed suicide, and that's the state she was in. And thank heaven, the doctor she went to knew that she could be cured with treatment. So today it's either 16 or 17 years cancer-free, and she is like the poster child to fight assisted suicide and euthanasia. So remember that these bills are not necessarily for those who die. I'll give you a quick little example that might hit home a little bit, is that for an 18-year-old, if they're a diabetic and they take medication for diabetes, just say their boyfriend breaks up with them, they're depressed, they don't want to live anymore, they decide, I'm not taking my medication anymore, they can go to the doctor and apply for assisted suicide and not tell the parents. That's not a requirement in these bills, okay? So it will affect many people. The people that you say, well, I should want to do what I want, but they don't know what's in the bill and who the people it will affect. And it will affect their loved ones. If the bill passes, it will legalize, now I'm talking about New York State bill. If the bill passes, it will legalize euthanasia. Doesn't say it in the bill. I couldn't find it. This is how it legalizes euthanasia. So in the bill, they call this lethal drug medicine. The person goes home with the medicine, and just suppose the person, he just didn't, or she didn't want to take that yet. Well, I feel okay now, I'm going to wait, and they wait, and they wait, and they wait. And then they get to the point where maybe they can't lift their arm. So now, they need assistance in taking that. That's euthanasia. So suicide is, you take the gun, I hate to use that as an example, but it's a quick example. You take a gun, you kill yourself. Assisted suicide, you ask someone for the gun, they give it to you, you kill yourself. Euthanasia, the person has the gun, he kills you. Okay? So that's what happens, why euthanasia will be legalized in New York State. So when that mentality develops, okay, once it passes, and that article, the journal that I pointed out, even supports what I'm going to say, is that when that mentality begins to develop in the society, what happens is, now there is a burden to die. Doctors, for example, there was Candace Lewis, and I'm going to finish. Candace Lewis in the Netherlands, 27-year-old young woman, had to get to the hospital. Her mother was there with her, and the doctor tells the mother in front of the daughter, you know we have assisted suicide, it's legal. And she says, no, I didn't know it was legal. And he says, are you interested? She says, no, of course not. The following day, the doctor goes to the daughter, she's of age, she's an adult, goes to the daughter, he says, do you know how sick you are? You can have assisted suicide if you want. So she didn't, but that's where the burden to die, it develops, okay, from the law passing. And I think that because it's 5 after 5, I want to say thank you, Chris, for having this event so that we can discuss such things as this.
Chris. Chris. All right.
All right, one quick question, one.
How about two? Just, I don't know if any of you went to the March for Life in New York City. I want you to feature this. This is Dawn Eskew. She got a parade permit in New York City, which has basically a Sandinista mayor. A parade permit for pro-life in New York City. How that happened, it had to be a miracle. She used the parade permit. She used the parade permit to organize a March for Life. First, it was 2 weekend days where there's not a lot of people down there other than tourists. And the tourists were in shock. And we were surprised we were not killed. We marched through, we started Foley Square, which is the second judicial capital of the United States. All those courts, past City Hall and the mayor, down Broadway, past St. Paul's Church, Trinity Church, Wall Street, Fulton Street, took a turn onto Wall Street and ended 500 feet from the stock market. And then this year, she did it on a weekday when there were millions of people down there. I want you to think about this. About 400 people walking down through Foley Square when the courts are open, past City Hall where the City Council and the mayor are there, down Broadway, past the site of 9/11, past Wall Street with millions of people there. Most people weren't